Banger after banger.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Big Hill Chris back at you with another one. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, ring the notification bell, hit me up on Twitter, TikTok, the community post, you already know the vibes. And once again, happy holidays, happy new year. I'm back at you with the final AEW Dynamite review of 2023, the final episode of Dynamite of 2023, and not to mention the go home episode of Dynamite for World's End, which takes place this Saturday on pay-per-view. So before I get into this episode of Dynamite, before I really break down this episode of Dynamite, I have a couple things I want to talk about. First things first, this whole Don Callis family situation. Like, when it was advertised that on this episode of Dynamite we will have a segment from the Don Callis family, I rolled my eyes so hard I thought that my eyes were going to pop out of my head and roll down the street. So of course you have the Don Callis family come out, mostly Don Callis doing all the talking. He's showcasing all these pictures because it's Boxing Day or whatever, and for some reason I thought they were talking about like boxing, like hands boxing, but not like actual boxing. Like, apparently it's a Canadian thing. It's like the equivalent of Black Friday or whatever. So Don Callis has gifts for the family, for Powerhouse Hobbs and Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher, and he's giving them all paintings, and he says now the family is complete. And then out of nowhere you have the return of Sammy Guevara, and I'm like, okay. And I kind of had a feeling I knew where this was going to go, but I was like, let's just see where this plays out. And Sammy Guevara makes his way to the ring. He says Don Callis hasn't called him since he's been out with a concussion. He's been out on paternity leave. You know, him and his wife have just given birth to a brand new beautiful baby. So, you know, congratulations to them. But Sammy's like, yo, man, you haven't called me. I'm receiving calls from mad people I haven't even heard from in years or whatever. But I haven't heard anything from Don Callis. And Don Callis was like, all right, we want to be honest about this whole thing. The reason I haven't called you is because you were disappointment and blah, blah, blah. And Sammy Guevara says, you know what, Don Callis, you suck, because instead of, you know, building up all this talent you have around you, you made it all about you. He talked about the fact that Kenny Omega lost to Takeshita twice in the span of a week, and nobody remembers that. Powerhouse Hobbs beat Chris Jericho. Nobody really talks about that. Even Kyle Fletcher being the new Ring of Honor television champion, nobody really talks about that. Only thing people talk about is Don Callis. So now the Don Callis family attack Sammy Guevara, and then of all people to come out, my suspicions were correct. Chris Jericho comes out to make the save. He runs off the Don Callis family, him and Floyd the baseball bat. And then Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara have a moment, and they're back together. And I'm like, bro, I understand why. Because, you know, Kenny Omega is out with diverticulitis. I understand that. But the fact that Sammy Guevara switches from heel to face to heel, like he's the Big Show, you know? Like, the only other person I've seen do this was the Big Show, you know, the constant switching between face and heel. And if that wasn't enough, you have Big Bill and Ricky Starks come out of nowhere and attack Chris Jericho and Sammy. And if that wasn't enough, you have Sting and Darby Allin come out of nowhere. And I'm like, why? I understand Big Bill and Ricky Starks. That makes sense because they were supposed to have a tag team match against the Golden Jets. Alright, so they still have beef with Chris Jericho. I get that. But why, oh why, is Sting and Darby Allin involved? I don't know why. It was just like a big mess. It was a lot going on. And on top of all that, on top of everything else that's going on, now there's going to be an 8-man tag between the Don Callis family and Ricky Starks and Big Bill, taking on the team of father and son, Darby Allin and Sting, and I guess father and son part 2, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. And I'm like, oh God. At least it's not the tag team match. At least it's not Chris Jericho winning the tag team championships. Because honestly, I feel like if it was still Kenny Omega and Chris, I feel like they would be the new tag team champions. So there's that. However, we're not done talking about new tag team champions. So speaking of that, this leads us into our main event match of the evening. Before we get into all this, you had a funny segment. This was probably like the only part that made me laugh about this whole devil storyline tonight, was the fact that you had Roderick Strong in the back with the Kingdom, and they have this big chart, this big graph or whatever, and it's pretty much Roddy trying to prove that Max is the devil. He still thinks that Max is the devil. And this leads us into our main event, which is for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. You have Samoa Joe and MJF taking on two masked dudes. We don't know who these dudes are. They have a graphic. They got an entrance. But we have no idea who these dudes are, right? So the masked guys make their way out to the ring. They come through the crowd. MJF comes out, and he's waiting for Samoa Joe. But Samoa Joe has been attacked, or so we think, in the back. And he's injured. He's hurt. He's holding his knee like Peter Griffin or whatever. And Max is like, listen, look, I'm still defending these Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. I'll fight both these guys. MJF being the fighting champion that he is. But the numbers were too great, man. It was a 2-on-1 handicap match. It finally caught up to MJF. And not only that, you had some of the devil worshippers or whatever, hiding under the ring. One of them attacked MJF with a steel pipe. The other one hit MJF with a heat seeker. And we have new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. And the whole time this match is going on, I'm like, yo, why are you exchanging wrestling moves? Take the mask off. We need to find out who these guys are. You have them right there in reach. Just take the mask off. Why are you trying to do wrestling moves and you're talking to the crowd? Just find out who these people are. We do have a big revelation though. So after the match, you know, we have the new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions attacking MJF. But Samoa Joe triumphantly makes his way to the ring. He's limping down, you know, he's holding a steel chair. And I'm like, they're not about to do what I think they're about to do, are they? So Samoa Joe runs off the devil worshippers or whatever. But then you see the devil himself on the screen. He's looking at MJF and Samoa Joe. And then it cuts to this graphic that says, pleasure doing business with you. And Samoa Joe hits MJF with a steel chair. So apparently Samoa Joe has been in cahoots with the devil this whole entire time. We still have no idea who the devil is. We have no idea who the devil worshippers are. But we know now that Samoa Joe has been in league with this guy or these men or whoever these people are from jump. Why? I don't fucking know. Like, this is still confusing. We're getting closer to the reveal, I hope, at World's End. But then again, you never know, man. With AEW, I don't know. What I do know is a lot of people online weren't really feeling this too much. They was like, I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know how to feel about, you know, Samoa Joe being in league with the devil. And we still don't know who the devil is. I'm giving it until World's End to, you know, make my final judgment. But right now, as of right now, man, to be honest, this whole whodunit mystery angle between MJF and the devil worshippers and the masked man and Samoa Joe involved and all these other red herrings involved, it's kind of been hit or miss, with more misses than hits. Like, sometimes they'll get me into it, they'll get me invested, but for the most part, man, I gotta be honest and say I don't really care. I'm just waiting for the big reveal to see whoever these masked men are. I'm kind of at the point now, I'm just like, yo, let's get to it, man. Just get this over with. But for the most part, those were my ultimate two gripes about Dynamite. I'm lying. There was another issue I had. So apparently we have we're gonna have I think it's gonna be a trios match, my bad, on Rampage between Top Flight and Best Friends. So Top Flight, they're in the back. They're talking about how, you know, they couldn't be declaimed for the AEW Trios Championships, but they still want gold. And Orange Cassidy's doing that thing where it's like, okay, I got it. We're over here. We hear you guys talking, so it's on. It's official. We're gonna challenge you guys for a trios match on Rampage. And I'm like, why? I don't care or whatever. It's building up Top Flight as a trio, but I don't care. Another thing I didn't kind of care for was a segment between Saraya, Ruby Soho, and Harley Cameron, because they have the whole, like, another thing I'm noticing is a lot of people in AEW don't know how friendship works or relationships work, because apparently Saraya is jealous because Ruby Soho and Cool Hand Ange are in a relationship, or they're cool or whatever. And it's like, it's cool to be cool with more than one person, you know, but whatever, it is what it is. Ruby Soho is going to fight, I think, Marina Shafir on Rampage this Friday. Don't care. Outside of those things, the rest of this episode of Dynamite was really good. You had the Continental Classic finals. We know who's going in. We know who the final two men are. The first match was a triple threat match between Swerve, Moxley, and Jay White. And this match was fire. It was dope. And it was one of those matches where I would have been cool with either person winning. Like, if Swerve would have won, I would have been cool with that. If Jay White would have won, I would have been cool with that. But ultimately, the result was Jon Moxley getting the win. He hit the Death Rider on Jay White. So he's going on to face the winner of Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston. And Eddie Kingston finally did it, man. He finally got his get back. He finally got some revenge on Bryan Danielson for talking shit and calling him a bum for all these weeks and months or whatever. So it's official. At World's End, it's going to be Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. And after the Eddie Kingston match, you know, you had a promo battle between him and Mox. And they did a good job of, you know, hyping up the importance of this match. Jon Moxley said, you know, listen, you've been good. You know, these people love you, but it's not going to be enough to beat old Jon Moxley. And Eddie Kingston said, you know, screw all that. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to be the first ever Triple Crown Intercontinental Galactic Mega Champion or whatever this is called. So, you know, did a good job of building up, you know, the big hype for the big match. And this episode was really filling in a lot of these other matches. You had Miro challenging Andrade, so their match is going to be official at World's End. Another thing that was really fire was what was supposed to be a backstage segment or an interview with Christian and Edge. Christian was waiting for Christian and his family was waiting for Adam Copeland to show up. And when Adam Copeland did show up, he didn't want to talk. He just wanted to put hands and feet on Christian. And they had a backstage fight. You know, you had wrestlers breaking it up. You had officials breaking it up. So, you know, building up the fact that Edge and Christian really hate each other. So, you know, there's that. You also had Mariah May come out, and she's saying that she's going to make her debut, her in-ring debut, next week on Dynamite. But then you had Rio come out, and she wants some revenge for Mariah May hitting her in the face with the championship. And then a part that made me laugh so hard was the fact that he had Toni Storm come out, and as she's running out, she's running in black and white. And I have no idea why that made me laugh so hard, but it did. It was a pretty funny moment. Speaking of the women, you had the one women's match between Chris Statlander and Sky Blue, who's getting all the matches every week on Dynamite and Collision and Rampage and Dark and Elevation. But, you know, good for her. She's getting better. She's improving every week and blah, 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 blah. And the thing is, her and Chris had a really good match. And to my surprise, Chris lost to Sky Blue. Sky Blue hit a super duper cold blue off the top rope, and that was pretty cool. And also, you had Stokely Hathaway on commentary, and he's looking like he's trying to be in the corner of Chris Statlander. He's trying to like drive a wedge between Chris and Willow Nightingale. So, you know, who knows where that's gonna go. The only thing that I can kind of complain about as far as this goes is it doesn't really leave anything for Chris and Willow to do at World's End, because they're both New Yorkers. I think Chris is from Long Island, or Willow is from Long Island. They're both from New York, and they're not on the show. Maybe they'll find a way on the pre-show. I don't know. And speaking of the pre-show, we have Hook taking on Wheeler Yuta for the FTW Championship. On top of that is a 20-person battle royale, and whoever wins gets a title shot at whatever championship they want in the future. So, you know, good for them. I think I talked about everything on this show. Oh, one last thing. It's official. After 30 years, we're finally going to get Swerve versus Keith Lee. Praise God, from who all blessings flow. We're finally going to get this match. We're finally going to get this feud over with. Swerve can move on to something else afterwards. Keith Lee can move on to something else afterwards. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Wahali, I'm finished. And that's it, man. That's this episode of Dynamite. For the most part, it did do a good job of building up World's End. Outside of the things I complained about at the beginning of this video, man, it was a good episode. It was a good show. I'm very excited. I'm actually am excited to see World's End and where this goes, and whether or not Samoa Joe can finish his story and finish off MJF and become the new AEW champion. Of course, as we all know, MJF, his contract expires at the big January 1st, and he still hasn't signed allegedly. So who knows where this goes and where this leads MJF and the Devil and the Devils and the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships and whatever. But with that being said, guys, what did you think of this week's episode of Dynamite? Let me know in the comment section below. Are you excited for World's End? What do you think about this whole Devil storyline? What do you think about the Don Callis family? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You guys take care. Bees, I'm out. Peace.